Go inside the Crimson Tide with your hosts Rodney Orr and Gary Harris, keeping you informed on everything Alabama. And now, Tider Insider TV.
Above all, when you look at the statistics from the scrimmage, what stands out is Bo Scarborough. The legend of Bo Scarborough is continuing to grow, and you see it right there as he goes for 9 carries, 132 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Can you imagine if he ever actually has a game where he puts up those kind of numbers? Jalen Hurts, the freshman quarterback, ran the ball 10 times for 57 yards, while Adarius Stewart had 100 yards receiving to go along with 2 touchdowns. On defense, Dalvin Tomlinson had a pair of sacks, while Reuben Foster had an interception return for a touchdown. You know what? I skipped some video there because for some reason I didn't have a script, but we're going to get to that and more when it comes to this scrimmage. Welcome into Tider Insider TV, everybody, presented each and every week by Buffalo Rock alongside Rodney Orr from TiderInsider.com. I'm Gary Harris. Tonight we have got Diet Pepsi Wild Cherry for our pleasure here on the set. Hate it when those scripts get lost, don't you? But we are going to talk about the scrimmage, the defense a little bit later on in the show. But let's start out, Rodney, with Bo Scarborough. Again, his legend continues to grow, and all he did last year was have just a little bit of mop-up duty at running back. But this is a young man that's got all the physical tools from right here in Tuscaloosa, and in that scrimmage, he put on quite a show.
Yeah, I think, you know, Gary, when you look at it, 9 carries, 132 yards, 3 touchdowns, certainly an outstanding first scrimmage, a guy that you're having to replace the Heisman Trophy winner. And he's going to be a key cog in terms of what Alabama likes to do offensively, line up and run the football. He has all the tools to be an outstanding player. We know that he's had 2 really significant injuries in his career, in high school with the knee injury, then last spring with that injury. So it is really good and encouraging to see him where he is right now. Indeed it is.
And you know, he's got a lot of physical ability, as we said, a lot of skills in the backfield. But, you know, he isn't the only guy on offense that can carry the football.
Yeah. Damian Harris is an outstanding young prospect as well. Both of these guys, sophomores. And, you know, Damian had 36 yards on 12 carries. But, you know, Gary, from everybody we've talked to, you're really not going to measure it by these statistics in terms of what we're talking about with Damian Harris, because he's had an outstanding spring. He's really made a lot of improvement. And, you know, we've talked about repeatedly of the importance of having 2 really good backs, because Alabama always likes to have that 1-2 punch. And, you know, Damian Harris has an opportunity this spring, and Bo Scarborough too, but Damian Harris has an opportunity to really kind of help solidify himself and make a lot of improvement. And you hear a lot of mention too of fall camp when it rolls around about B.J. Emmons, the running back out of North Carolina, who's so highly touted. He's about a 230-pounder. I really think he fits the Nick Saban mold. So I know we're not talking about fall camp, but as you start looking forward, he's a guy that could play a significant role.
Well, of course, no stats are made available to reporters in regards to the quarterbacks. But we know there are 4 of them on scholarship, plus some walk-ons too. And Nick Saban seemed generally pleased with what he saw from the quarterbacks when he spoke post-scrimmage. But again, you've got Bateman, Barnett, Cornwell, and Hurts. And without being able to watch the scrimmage and not really getting numbers, you're relying on, you know, what coach says and also what some of the folks say that watch the scrimmage, some of whom you talked to. You know, what was the feel you got on how the quarterbacks performed?
Well, I always think it's interesting that really the one that Coach Saban singled out after the scrimmage was Cornwell. He mentioned that he had thrown the ball fairly well. Now, it may be that Cooper Bateman didn't get as many reps or whatever, who knows, but I think that's always interesting to look at. So obviously Cornwell's made a lot of improvement, continues to make improvement. He had a good spring last spring, by the way, but I think as you look at these guys, Gary, you really have to think about the experience that Cooper Bateman got last year and all of the preparation, all of the reps that he got as the backup, which is a lot of reps. That's a lot of experience that the other guys really don't have. And when I say that, I think it really gives him a little bit of an edge in some ways in terms of his command of the offense because of the experience he's had in it. And I think that's really the key thing as you find your quarterback. Nick Saban wants a guy that can command the offense the best. And right now, I would say he probably would have the edge.
All right, we're just about halfway through spring, but A-Day is only a week from this coming Saturday, so we'll be done with it before you know it. Well, last week, the Tide added a kicker through the graduate transfer option, and the team bolstered its special teams even more this week with the announcement that punter Preston Knight will be a preferred walk-on beginning this fall. Now, Knight is from Prattville High School, a great program. He's 6'5", tall and slender, a lot like the current punter there at Alabama. He averaged just under 40 points per punt, or 40 yards per punt during his senior season, and he's got a good one to learn from. And J.K. Scott, how does Preston Knight fit into Alabama's punting plans going forward?
Well, as long as J.K. Scott's here, Preston Knight's going to have to wait his opportunity, but you always want to have guys ready. Like we said last week with the place kicking chores, Gary, you never know when, something happens to a guy, and you always have to have somebody who's ready to step up and take on that role. So, he's got the tools. He can be an outstanding kicker. But again, as long as, J.K. Scott's here, he's going to be waiting his opportunity.
All right, Rod, still to come on Tider Insider Television. Deshaun Hand often gets mistaken for another Alabama football player. We'll hear about his story in regards to confusion at the national championship game. Plus, the Crimson Tide baseball team looking to right the ship after dropping an SEC series on the road at Georgia. We'll have those highlights for you. Plus, coming up, we'll be getting to your phone calls, emails, and tweets. You see the information on the screen. Interact with Tider Insider TV right now, so go ahead and give us a call at 205-348-WVUA. That's 205-348-9882. Or email us at TITV@WVUA23.com. Or you can reach out to us on Twitter using the hashtag TITV. We'll be right back with the only show that takes you inside the Crimson Tide. Tider Insider TV will return right after this. We discussed the impact of Bo Scarborough earlier in the program. Well, Deshaun Hand is poised to play a big role for the Alabama defense this fall. And both players, as fate would have it, Hand and Scarborough, wear number 9. I don't like this rule, but you're allowed to wear duplicate numbers if one plays offense, one plays defense. Hand talked about how that caused a little bit of confusion in the days leading up to the college football championship this past January.
We was at Media Day. I was on this little radio thing, and one of the guys was like, all right, and one of the guys is gonna be toting the ball next year, number 9, but and then the other guy was looking at him and I'm just whoa. So then he was once he was yeah, Bo Scarborough, how does it feel be behind Derrick Henry? And then the guy was well, I don't know about that, but he might be hitting Derrick Henry in practice. He's one of the 14 guys on the D-line. So it was just, it was a little mix up, but I mean, we both have helmets on, we're both big, and we both have number 9, so
Speaking of confusion, has anybody ever said you look like a young Mike Tyson?
Oh, no. Oh, man, come on, man. Don't do me like that. Oh, no. Nah, man. I've actually got that before.
Bring him out to the interview room all the time. What a great young man. And, he's a heavyweight himself. He may not be Mike Tyson, and he's not going to have to play second fiddle to Bo Scarborough or anyone else, because he could be the version of Bo Scarborough on that defense, Rodney. He's really good, as Alabama is going to take a look at him and some others as they try to replace guys like Jaron Reed, Ashawn Robinson, Denzel Duvall, Darren Lake, and others. The defense looked very good at the team's first scrimmage, reportedly. Does the Tide have the pieces to put together a defense as good as last year's, Rodney? That's the question, or maybe even as good as 2011 or 2009 or 1992. You're always at Alabama talking about the great defenses of the past. How do you think this one is going to shape up?
Well, I think they all have their own kind of characteristics or personalities or whatever, and I think this one will have its own, but I think it still can be outstanding, no question about it. Not as much depth up front defensively, Gary, as last year, but how many defenses have that kind of, those kind of numbers? Not very many, but still really good. Look at Dalvin Tomlinson, Deron Payne, Deshaun Hand, Jonathan Allen. Josh Frazier has a chance to be a really, really good player too. They've got some guys coming in the fall. So I think they've got a chance to be strong up front, Gary, really fast at linebacker. Tim Williams, Ryan Anderson, Rashawn Evans, Sean Dion Hamilton, Reuben Foster. In the secondary, really talented when you talk about Minka Fitzpatrick, Marlon Humphrey. On the back end, you've got Eddie Jackson, who had 6 interceptions last year. Ronnie Harrison got some experience. Anthony Averett's coming around. Kendall Sheffield's an outstanding young prospect. They've got a lot of talent on the defensive side of the ball. I think they're going to be very fast. They're going to be very athletic. I think they're going to be strong up front. I think they're going to be an outstanding defense.
It's hard to imagine because they got more athletic last year than they were the year before. And I'm with you. I don't know if this defensive front is going to be as dominant as last year's group.
Right.
You'd have to go a long way to be that good. But they might be more athletic. Yeah, you mentioned Anderson, Williams. Those are guys that can put their hand in the dirt. But they are really fast coming off the edge.
Jonathan Allen, too.
Yeah,
He had, 12
and think about him
sacks
coming
last
back.
year.
Yeah.
And Tim Williams, he has a lot of confidence. He had, 10 sacks last year. So Ryan Anderson had a big year, kind of a breakout year.
I wouldn't want to try to block him.
Yeah, and it's going to be interesting to watch some of the young guys, too. Maybe Mekhi Brown or Christian Miller gets an opportunity to start. We start seeing them develop for the future. So it's going to be really interesting to watch. And I think one of the really interesting spots is going to be watching Rashawn Evans on the inside playing. That looks like it was a good move. He had 8 tackles, a sack in this game. He's a playmaker, so it's going to be really interesting watching this defense.
I think they'll be giving offensive line coaches and offensive coordinators nightmares getting ready to face Bama again this year. Well, the Crimson Tide baseball team back on the diamond today after losing 2 out of 3 at Georgia over the weekend. Alabama with a doubleheader today against Alcorn State. Game 1 is already in the books. Now, Alcorn State held a 5-4 lead going to the 8th now. That's getting nervous time. Wow. But Bama with runners on first and second, nobody out. Chandler Avant lines one to left, gets kicked around out there a little bit, and Alabama scores to tie the game at 5-5. 2 batters later, Chance Vincent, a chopper to third, and I guess this is why Alcorn is 6-18 on the season. They don't handle it, 2 more runs score, and Alabama comes back to win it 8-5. Man, you would not want to lose to Alcorn State. Game 2 of the doubleheader is just underway. Well, the new Joe, this didn't take long, did it, is looking less and less brand new after a foul ball popped through one of the windows during today's game. This picture was tweeted out by Alabama baseball beat writer Ben Jones of the Tuscaloosa News, and I imagine they'll get that fixed pretty quickly, but it looks like it's not going to be the only time that's going to happen, Rod.
Yeah. Which one is it?
I don't know, but it's that's not good. Design flaw right there. All right, stick with us here on Tider Insider TV. We'll have the latest from Alabama gymnastics as the Crimson Tide continues its incredible streak to the NCAA championships. But up next, we'll be welcoming your phone calls, emails, and tweets. You see the information right there on the screen. Give us a call at 205-348-WVUA. That's 348-9882. Email us at TITV@WVUA23.com. Or Brandon and Katarina are waiting for your tweets using the hashtag TITV. Somebody tweet at us, because I really want to use. I'm still trying to figure out how this hashtag deal works. I'm getting better on Twitter, but I'm still not there. So somebody tweet at us using the hashtag TITV so we can put it on TV tonight. We'll be back with more Tider Insider Television right after this. The Alabama gymnastics squad is headed to its 34th consecutive NCAA championship next week. Marinate on that for a moment now. Think about that. 34 straight trips to the national championships. Unbelievable. Crimson Tide won the Tuscaloosa Regional on Saturday with a score of 197.125. Had a slow start in the meet, but you couldn't hold the Tide back from its 31st regional title. Man alive, that's some good stuff. And Alabama will go for its 7th national championship starting next Friday in Fort Worth, Texas. Right now, Rodney, let's head to the phone lines as they are lined up for us. First up tonight is Sue right here in Tuscaloosa. Good evening, Sue.
Good evening. I was going to ask a question. I got 2 questions. My first question is, when will they have a decision if Tony Brown is going to be eligible to play or if he's indefinitely suspended? And my second question is, with Jalen Hurts being a freshman out of high school, is it a good chance that Saban could possibly put him in as a quarterback, coming fresh out of high school?
All right, Sue, let's start with Tony Brown. Aaron Settle's reporting the first report that he's facing an indefinite suspension from the NCAA. I don't know what Rodney can add to that. I'll ask. We'll have to wait and see how this plays out. Obviously, Alabama continues to practice him, and I have the feeling that he's going to certainly play at some point in 2016.
And it's, Alabama, according to Aaron's report, is appealing whatever the suspension might be. And we don't know exactly what it is right now, the definite time period. As far as Jalen Hurts is concerned, certainly he's competing, has an opportunity to, win the job, but it's always difficult for a true freshman, Gary.
It is, and keep this in mind, Sue. He's right in there competing, but it is rare for a true freshman to play, much less to even not be redshirted. I mean, he may be the best quarterback we've ever seen, but I think a lot of times for these guys right out of high school, a redshirt year is not a bad thing. So don't panic if he's not playing as a true freshman. He's got a long career ahead of him here in Tuscaloosa. All right, let's go over to Northeast Alabama and check in Oxford with Shane. Hey, Shane, what's up, man?
Roll Tide.
I hear you, bud.
Quickly, y'all figure out how Kiffin got locked down of the stadium.
I'm beginning to think he does some of this stuff on purpose, Shane. I'm telling you. I mean,
I was wondering if y'all knew, if y'all agree with me thinking Bo Scarborough, his first step was a little quicker than Henry did, like hitting the hole.
All right, first, go ahead. I'm sorry. All right, let's start. We'll get to Bo Scarborough. On Kiffin, he knows they're going to get him in the stadium. I'm not sure. Just like out in Dallas when the bus left him, or out in Arizona when the bus left him. Sometimes I wonder if he kind of likes that type of attention.
Well, again, I think crediting Aaron Suttles, I think he's the one that tweeted out the picture of
but he got in.
Kiffin trying to get
and
in.
On Bo Scarborough, hey, Shane, I think you may be right. I mean, no, don't get me wrong, man. Look at what Henry did. Bo's got a long way to go before he's mentioned with Derrick Henry. But as far as maybe being a little quicker in that first step, I think he may be a little more explosive at, that first carry or two, first step.
Yeah, I think so. I think we've seen that a little bit. Now, I'll say this, too. We'd have probably said the same thing about Kenyon Drake.
Yeah.
But, when they ran their 40s at the combine, the first 10 yards, Henry had the better time.
Yeah.
So that was a little bit of a surprise. But, I would agree. I think as far as running as a running back, it does appear Bo's a little bit quicker in terms of that first step.
But again, Shane, and everybody, calm it down just a little bit. I mean, I hope he breaks all Henry's records, but I'm telling you, Henry was special. And to win a Heisman Trophy is proof of that. All right, we're going to take a timeout. If you're on hold, like Tommy in Talladega, stay with us. We'll get to you when we come back. More phone calls and emails here on Tider Insider TV. We'll be back with more. Right after this, there's the number if you want to give us a call. Brett Novasahan wants to play professional basketball, and this is a big help right here. He got invited to compete at Portsmouth in the Invitational next week. It is a 12-game tournament which showcases some of the top college players to scouts really from around the world. So good going, Retton. Also, two of his former teammates are leaving Alabama. Forward Michael Kessens and guard Justin Coleman, both announcing last week, and it was confirmed by head coach A.B. Johnson that they are going to transfer. Kessens is a graduate transfer player. He'll be eligible immediately unless he turns pro. Coleman will have to sit out a year if he transfers to another NCAA Division I program. All right, thanks for keeping it right here on Tider Insider TV. Let's get back to the phone lines. Tommy has been patiently holding over in Talladega. Good evening, Tommy. How are you?
Pretty good. How y'all?
Very well, sir.
I'm on 100%, but I'm getting a little disgusted with Mitch Gaspar because it's a beautiful stadium, but you got a mediocre coach. And how long has he been there?
Well, Tommy, he's been the head coach since 2010. He had two stints as an assistant. He was with Jim Wells when Jim Wells came back, I want to say, in 93 or 4, and had a great run there as an assistant. They went to several World Series. Then he left to become the head coach at Northwestern State down in Louisiana, came back as an assistant to Coach Wells, and then took over as the head coach in 2010. And, in fairness, Tommy, I hear what you're saying, but they're actually, so far this year, they're pretty good. I mean, they're 5-4 in the SEC. They did okay in the non-conference. Let's kind of wait and see how the season plays off before we fire the guy. Okay, is that all right? I don't think that's too much to ask. And if he has a bad year this year, then maybe what you kind of inferring that you would like to see happen will happen. But let's let the season play out. I mean, they do have a winning record right now in conference play through 9 games. Yeah,
and I think it's fair to say there is a lot of people that are with a lot of unrest right now, but they did win the first 2 series against Tennessee and LSU. Of course, they didn't against Georgia, and they lost that. But didn't
get swept.
Yeah, didn't get swept, but they also lost the game. I think a lot of people got upset about that midweek game last week against Auburn. Yeah. But I agree with you, Gary. I think you've got to let the season play out, and there's going to be whatever evaluation needs to be made.
Yeah, Bill Battle and those folks will make it. All right, let's go over to Bessemer and talk to our buddy John. What's up, John?
Gary, Ronnie, what's going on, man?
You know it, brother.
Hey, man, I wonder have we got the team to make it to Atlanta win the championship later?
All right, John. Yeah, I certainly think Alabama does. I mean, We get asked this question a lot, and I think John asked it a lot. But, yeah, I mean, they do. Now, will they make it to Atlanta and then on to the college football playoff? We'll have to see. But they're good enough, in my opinion. They're one of the contenders, certainly.
Yeah, I think when you just look at it from we're at spring practice.
Yeah,
I mean, we don't know how all the parts are going to come together yet. But I think when you just look at them out there, it's hard to imagine that there's many teams in this conference that are more talented. But again, it's not all about talent. It's about a team that plays together, that has that chemistry. I think this team, when you look at them on the hoof, certainly they have that potential, John. They have potential to go back to the playoffs when you look at them, just physically. But again, that's not all that decides. It's not just the athleticism and all of those things. It's how they come together and develop as a team.
But they're going to be good. I will say that. All right. If you send an email in and we didn't get it to you this week, get to it this week. We do save those emails and we will get them worked in eventually. Thanks for the phone calls. We've got to get to a timeout. When we come back, the Alabama softball team is coming off a huge series victory at Florida, and the Tide and some of its players getting national recognition after that series win. Stay right here. Boy, it's a beautiful evening, isn't it? Right here in Tuscaloosa. The only show that takes you inside the Crimson Tide, the award-winning Tider Insider TV, will return after this timeout. Bama softball went into Gainesville this past weekend and took the series from the #1 ranked Gators. Florida had one loss the entire season. Bama gave them 2 in one weekend. Sydney Littlejohn named the NFCA National Pitcher of the Week today. She was also the SEC Pitcher of the Week. Catcher Reagan Dykes, her battery mate, was the Freshman of the Week in the SEC, and Alabama is currently hosting Mississippi Valley State over at Rhodes Stadium. We'll have highlights of that game tonight at 10. The Tide will welcome in Mississippi State this weekend. Well, as always, our beautiful dress shirts and ties, courtesy tonight of the Locker Room in downtown Tuscaloosa, home of the original elephant wear. Go by and see Alex and Rush and the folks there, or you can shop online at their website at locker-room.biz. All the original elephant wear and their entire line of men's and ladies' clothing is right there available on the website. But I would encourage you to get by and see them too. Hey, their beautiful new building is awesome, isn't it, Ryan?
Yeah, it really is.
It really is, right there in downtown Tuscaloosa. All right, that is going to do it for our program tonight. If you missed any of tonight's show, you can catch it on a replay tonight at 10:30 or anytime at WVUA23.com. For Rodney Orr, I'm Gary Harris. Thanks for watching. Good night.